feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks and coming at you late Friday night. It's January 17th after the Wolves 116-99 win in New York over the Knicks. And with the Wolves playing a back-to-back back in Minnesota against the Cavs. Tomorrow we are doing a night of pod. I'm out here in New York, or I was out here. I am out here for the game. And then way on the other side of the country where it's a lot earlier, I'm joined by Kyle Theige to recap it. I was thinking about it. How many Kyle pods have we done after wins this season? I'm on the road. The Wolves won. It feels like the 2024 playoffs, man.
I know. It's like the last time we've done an after night pod. Was it after New Orleans, or when I was in New Orleans? Not after New Orleans, but when they lost to the Mavs and got bounced, and we stayed up late. And you said a bunch of nice things about people. It's been a crazy season, right? Like this has been.
I've only said bad things about people this season.
Yeah, pretty much. My parents included. So it's been a tough season, but that was, I mean, you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, especially on a Friday, but that was probably the best game they've played. I mean, we can set the stage about who wasn't there and stuff, but just first things first, because again, I love basketball. I love the history of it. You love basketball. That's why you do this for a full-time job. But that was your first time covering a game at Madison Square Garden, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. It's funny because I've done a lot of Wolves Nets games.
On purpose?
I don't know why. Yeah,
Okay,
but I've been to Barclays. I've covered like 3 games at Barclays.
Okay,
I think. But yeah, only once a year. Wolves Knicks, and I don't do all the road games. But obviously, this one was circled on the calendar because of them playing Carl, which of course didn't happen.
Yeah.
And Dante DiVincenzo didn't play either in this game. So. Right, the story of this game sort of shifts a little bit, but
before you work though, just like what was that like? Because that's the mecca, right? Like that is, I mean, the Severance cast is sitting courtside, and Spike Lee's getting Ant's jersey, and some guy hits a half quarter for a Kia. Like,
dude, I was like, this guy's about to hit this.
Oh, you gotta film that. What was just like? Is it as cool of a basketball place for basketball nerds as everyone says?
I would say the thing, like when I sat down on my seat before, like the things that stood out logistically were like how the seats all around are a circle. There's, like at Target Center, there's like, okay, you go, it's like flat, angle,
very
flat.
Rigid.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like a circle going up and up and up to the top of the stadium. And then the top of the stadium is very low and flat. So it's, I don't know. It's kind of like a stage
lighting,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The theater lighting. So that's something we're going to get at Target Center here if we have our say. Because I just think that makes it it is, right? Like it's an event, it's entertainment, you kind of dim the lights and then you just have the product. So, I just wanted to get your brain on that. But I mean, the story is, right, as you kind of go into this rematch after what happened at Target Center in that first game, no Towns, who's a late scratch with a thumb. No Dante, no update on Dante, right? Like you didn't get anything on that.
No, I mean, I haven't got any information. I mean, Finch was very coy about it in the pregame when we asked us our first media availability with Finch since that. And he's like, out tonight, and that's it for right now. So it's a toe. That, the worst case with that is turf toe. And that's going to be, that would be like a month. But I don't know what it is. And I could certainly be wrong, and he could play tomorrow. So the vibe I got is this might be a bit of time, and they're going to need to figure it out without him. And I thought that's what stood out to me about this game is you go, all right, they don't have Dante DiVincenzo. Like, you set the stage right there. You don't have Dante DiVincenzo. I'm going into that game thinking, all right, well, the offense is for sure going to be worse. The rebounding is for sure going to be worse. And the defense, particularly on the perimeter, is going to be worse. Like that,
and the energy.
Right. You would think. And I mean, rebounding a little bit funky at the beginning of the game. Gobert missed a couple, but largely a solid rebounding performance by them. Talk about the defense later. I thought being able to control Brunson with Towns out was big. The perimeter defenders did that, but it was their 4th best offensive rating game, offensive efficiency game of the season. And that pop, that met the eye test. And obviously a lot of that is influenced by hitting threes. But I thought of what I understand the offense is supposed to look like, right? This flow-based system through Finch, I think they were hitting a lot of those notes. And even on some possessions where I think the real way to see it is when like an initial action dies, right? The movement continues and the play doesn't just bog down into like, all right, this didn't work. I guess I'm going to isolate here, And I thought that was a big, stride. There's no rim protector out there really for New York. But that's not a bad defensive personnel team. Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, those guys. It was definitely noteworthy to me that the Wolves were able to get to their offense effectively and efficiently in the game. Obviously, Ant's numbers really, really pop in this 36, 13, and 7. We can talk about him, but I think Ant is able to have a performance like that due to the offense just being functional, and the offense in this system is functional when it has a good flow to it. I asked Finch about that after the game.
So you guys made a lot of threes in this game, but did it feel like it was the offensive flow was there, or was the offensive flow there because you were making threes?
No, I thought we had really good flow. I thought we started the game with good early actions, got the ball loosened up early, got even the shots we missed early on were good shots in the flow. I thought Julius was outstanding, finding guys. I mean, a lot of those threes were created by kickouts by him and Ant for sure. So that was, we created the flow and we benefited from it.
Naz was a play finisher a lot of the time from three there,
Mm-hmm.
rebounded. I mean, is he kind of a representation too? Of
Absolutely. I think a bunch of his threes were Julius fed, in the slot there when he drew traffic in the lane, and they're for the last number of weeks, I would say they've got really good chemistry. Those two guys on the floor with each other right now.
I thought, obviously, the Ant number is big there, the 36, 13, and 7. But what we've learned about the Ant experience, particularly with him getting more defensive attention, is somebody else kind of needs to be there to continue to loosen it up and to be a threat. Julius was that at times. He was generating double teams, and like Finch said, found Naz for a bunch of those. But Naz being confident and a weapon in this case to hit all of his threes, 6 for 6 from deep, but a threat that they have to respect out there makes a huge difference in what this offense looks like overall. It's as simple as spacing, right? When you can't leave Naz Reid, that's going to be a cleaner path there. And how many times did the offense swing, and then it found its way to the guy that the Knicks were leaving open? Oftentimes it was Jade McDaniels in the corner, Minot a couple times. I'm saying, man, if it's only one guy out there that you're like, not a great shooter, like this can work. This can work offensively. It's when they're really respecting 4 of the 5 guys out there. I don't want to say this offense can be great or potent or anything like that, but it can be functional. And I thought it really was tonight. And a big part of that is Ant, but also the Reid and Randall in particular. They are beginning to fold in nicer together, which leads to them folding in great around Ant.
Yeah, just a couple of their stats. 22 made threes tonight for the Wolves, tied a season high. They shot 55% from 3, which was a season high. And it is just kind of funny, right? Not even petty, just funny that 4th best, you said, offensive rating. They had a season high in 3-point percentage. And they do all that without probably their best 3-point shooter, not named Ant, right? Like no Dante DiVincenzo. So it's like, oh man, the offense looks so much better tonight because you had to respect all the guys. It's like the same guys that don't get respected every other night. It was still Mike in the corner and Jaden in the corner. And I mean, Naz had, maybe we can do a whole segment on Naz and just kind of what he, his jersey retirement last night was just a cool 24, 36 hours for Big Jelly. But yeah, I mean, I also thought it was kind of funny too, because it just kind of goes out of his way sometimes, right? Finch to be like, I thought Julius was awesome. I know, right? And from a playmaking standpoint, he did finish with 8.7 rebounds, 6 assists. He had 4 turnovers. I didn't come away with that thinking like Julius had this awesome box score game, but I will say he took 6 shots. Like, I thought he played in a, he did play the Knicks a couple weeks ago, and that was like his first time against his old teammates. But this was his first time in the regular season in his old arena. And I thought he did a really good job of not forcing it and just kind of buying into who the best player on the team is and what they're trying to do. I mean, I think, I even think Julius's grandma will be proud of his performance tonight. So I thought he just kind of stayed out of the way because they didn't need him, and it was all about Ant and kind of some of the supplementary pieces like Jaden and Rob. We'll get into him. So really good performance. And, when Dante was out, I didn't know who was going to start, but you probably thought it was Mike, and I was like, well, is Rob going to play? But that first stint for the starters,
that was when
really,
Randall was
really
good.
Yeah,
And
good
that
energy.
in and of itself made it like a solid to good Randall game.
Grady said on the call, like 5 minutes into the game, 6 minutes into the game, like, because the Knicks' biggest lead of the game was 3 points. Like, this was pretty much a wire-to-wire victory, which, again, that's pretty impressive for a team that the last time you were in the locker room, Ant was saying we had no energy, and the fans had to stand for like 42 straight minutes at Target Center. So, but they said like 5 or 6 minutes in, Julius Randle hasn't taken a field goal attempt, but they were doing good things, with the ball. So,
well, you remember the very first possession of the game, he like snatches like a physically, like went and got an offensive rebound.
Yeah.
And kicked it out. It was either to Jaden or Mike, and they hit a 3 there. And then the next possession down, Randall drives in, draws 2, swing, gets a hockey assist to, again, I don't know if it was Jaden or Mike on that one. I think those were the first 2, but another open 3 as a product of that. Julius Randle can generate good offense for them when he is drawing a crowd. Like, what's happened a lot over the last, I would say almost like 6 weeks, is so many teams are just guarding him with one, and like almost intentionally not leaving, scouting it out, reading it. Like, the best thing Julius Randle does for this team offensively is drive and kick, right? Like that's the button he presses that generates the best offense through him on this team. When it's just one, right? You don't have that guy to spread out to, and now you're Randall and it's isolation game. And sometimes that works, but a lot of the time that's where his efficiency numbers dip. I think, sounds weird, but I know so many people want Julius Randle to not start. But if Julius Randle is going to start, then he can serve a real value to this team by being a spark, literally in those first 5 minutes, like Grady said, of the first quarter and the third quarter. Because really, the only time that he's sharing the floor with Gobert are those couple of times, right? The beginning of the halves. They're not closing the halves with them. I mean, sometimes they might close the game together with them, but they kind of did. Wasn't close, so they didn't have to close with their starter, close with any real lineup there. But can Randall be a helpful part to the offense in the first 5 minutes of the game? I remember Finch said like a couple of weeks ago, he's like, when we play our best offense, because everybody's been asking, right? Like, what's wrong with the starting group? Why can't you guys get going? He said, we play our best offense with that starting group at the start of games when Julius is generating it. And I would co-sign that, even if I wouldn't co-sign the overall process of how they're approaching, the starting lineup and all of those things. And that happened tonight. So I think Finch pumping Julius's tires there in the clip is a little bit about, there was 15 New York reporters around there just wanting to get Julius fodder. So I think that's where that comes from. I think that's a little exaggerated by Finch, but it wasn't fake. I don't think Julius didn't help. He didn't have it. He definitely didn't have like a hurtful game in any sort of way. And in pockets, he was helpful. That's what they need Julius Randle to be right now in this iteration of this team.
Yeah, 6 field goal attempts is the lowest of the season for him. I think he had 9 against the Clippers in that tight win after the in-season tournament games. But yeah, I mean, he just wasn't really looking for a shot. And it was funny because I was waiting for you to get back to the hotel. So I was just watching like Lakers Nets and just the first quarter. And again, please just take it easy on me. But LeBron and Julius Randle don't have much in common. But what LeBron did in the first 4 minutes of the game was he just set the table for everyone and just tried to get those guys like warm-up reps of like, okay, because it was the 2 big threes to start the game to make it 6-0 was Mike in the left corner and Jaden in I think the right corner.
That's what it was.
So, you know what I mean? Like getting those 2 guys to make shots is really big, because those are two guys. I mean, no offense to Mike, but he's in this pile too that have been really streaky. And you end up getting, I think, 5 for 11 from Mike and Jaden from 3. To me, like that's good enough, right? Especially once you fold Dante back in. So, and big picture, I mean, we just said we don't know how long Dante will be out, but if this thing does start again with, when Dante's healthy, I would imagine he'll start again. It wouldn't hurt to have Randall even doing more of that facilitating early on like he did tonight, because you don't really have a traditional point guard out there like you do with Mike tonight. So again, not a big box score. Don't think it changes anything that you ranted about the other day, but he got out of the way tonight because he knew that not that they didn't need him, but like the best way to win was to just get others involved, and everyone else got involved.
Yep. I think that's well put. Let's grab our first break. I do want to talk about replacing Dante if this is going to be an extended period of time, and then also Rob, because he is, however long Dante is out, Rob is also going to be a really big part of that. But let's start this off by letting people know about our new sponsor, Watermelon Water. I noticed you're drinking one over there, Kyle. Seriously, it is. We told you about it last week. Probably one of the products I enjoy most on a personal level that that people have, that companies that we've worked with have sent us. I look forward to telling you all about some more of the benefits of this. But like I said before, the first thing that stands out to me about watermelon water is when I take a sip of it, it tastes like I'm biting into a watermelon. Like, not flavored like that. It actually tastes like that. And that's because it's cold pressed watermelon juice. You're drinking it right now, Kyle. What have you liked about it?
It's better than Powerade and Gatorade. I really think it is. Not because they sponsor the thing, but because it's just really good for you. The cold pressed part is really awesome. And again, just if you're into rehydration or just trying to take better care of yourself as we flip from 2024 to 2025, and maybe health is one of your New Year's resolutions, this is a really good way to do it. So I drink one every day after the gym. There's also some other fun flavors. I think there's like a strawberry lemonade. I don't know if you got one of those, but those are good. But yeah, just throw this in your gym bag. It's already kind of packaged for you and everything, just like any other sports drink, but it's delicious. That's like the thing, right? Like, yeah, we sponsor with the beer companies or the breweries because the beer's good and the casinos are fun. And like, this is a really, really good product. And if you're listening to this, I think you should really try it out and go online or go into your favorite local grocery store or place to pick it up.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Target or Whole Foods.
Yep.
If you're shopping there for your groceries already, look up watermelon water. It's WTRMLN, WTR, no vowels in there. Again, Target or Whole Foods. And because it's at Target or Whole Foods, that means if you get your groceries delivered, you can get it Whole Foods delivered through Amazon to your home. Just throw WTR, MLN, WTR into your cart there. Same thing with Instacart for Target, which I know a lot of people based in Minnesota do as well. It gets a genuine cosign from Kyle and I. I love a sponsor whose product I love. Again, that's WTR, MLN, WTR at Whole Foods and Target, or online through Amazon or Instacart. We'd love if you tried out Watermelon Water. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. Give me a second here. All right. Your Home Improvement Company. I know you have something. You're listening right now. You have something in your house that you're like, we're going to get this taken care of. Eventually, we need to get this replaced. And we would love it if you went to our friends at Your Home Improvement Company. yourhomeimprovementco.com. You can get more info, contact them there. They have their deals going on still, which are buy 2 windows, get 2 free. And they also are offering 30% off on bathroom remodels for this month. The renovations are done by certified local professionals and are backed by a lifetime warranty. Whatever the project, Your Home Improvement Company offers great financing deals that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. yourhomeimprovementco.com, or you can call them at 866-77-YHIC. That's Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better.
Can I give you another stat quick, and then you can talk about replacing Dante? I just think this was interesting because maybe if it's something for people listening to this on Saturday morning or this weekend to marinate on as you move forward into, I think you and Britt did a really good job of like this next chapter, right? It's not 20 games. It's kind of a potential trade deadline, but Horton had this Wolves 3-point percentage over the last month, which is 16 games, 40.5%.
Wow.
That's best in the league.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that. Would you?
Well, it's funny because they had the best 3-point percentage in the league last season, but they were, I don't remember, they're like 20th in volume or something.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So the point is, like, having the best 3-point percentage in the league when you're also shooting one of the higher volumes in the league, and that is one. As much as they miss Cat, or there's areas that they could use him, as crazy as it sounds, like this team became more of a 3-point shooting team without Karl Anthony Towns, even if they have worse spacing.
Yeah.
Part of that is, Karl was more of a reluctant 3-point shooter, and more so, and teams just glued up to him, right? So you would get space into your offense, but you wouldn't necessarily get 3-point volume. Well, Dante is the opposite of a reluctant 3-point shooter.
I'm glad you brought the volume thing too, just because to close it and then go right into Dante, because it, foot, toe, that stuff always makes me think they're going to be a little more cautious. But 40.5% over the last month, first in the NBA, 16 made threes per game is second in the NBA. So they're hitting them at a good clip and they're making a lot of them. And it kind of, as we all get, so deep into the game by game, and sometimes these games suck, like the Warriors game or that Grizzlies game. It's like, okay, the offense might never be beautiful, but it might start to be slowly but surely kind of figuring itself out.
I would say it's fair to say that the offense is getting traction. Say that understanding that they are a bottom 10 offense in the league right now, but I think watching it, eye test wise, feel of where it's moving. Like Finch was saying, they're finding things with the Reid and Randall chemistry there. Obviously, prior to tonight, Dante's involvement there. Like, doesn't it feel like the offense is at least moving back up towards the level that it was at last season, which wasn't good either, but mediocre. And I think that is the goal for this team this season, which is what they were last season. Mediocre offensively, great defensively. That's what they were tonight against the Knicks. And I think that, is the blueprint. The question is going to be, can they do that, without Dante DiVincenzo? Obviously, tonight they were able to figure that out. But I was curious going into the game what the solve was going to be for not having him. And I'm still, in a game that maybe you aren't making 55% of your threes, who else is going to need to step up there as well? I asked Finch about it after the game.
Did you replace him tonight, and how do you have to replace him if he's out for a period of time?
Well, I think, it's always going to be a group effort. I thought Mike's, hot start was good. Nikhil shot the ball really well, made clutch ones too, big ones. That was important for us. Dante's been doing that. And, of course, Ant's game was really, really good. And I like the way that Jaden was aggressive on the offensive glass. He had 3 offensive rebounds, and every single one was right when we needed it. And Dante's been a good rebounder for us, digging out those types of plays. So, it's real collective effort. And, of course, Rob's minutes were really good, So all that together, and that's how it's going to be. And, when you have 28 minutes that a guy's getting, and you break it up a bunch of other guys, you're going to be able to, hopefully find some rhythm themselves right now.
So maybe let's just use that as a transition over to Rob Dillingham, Kyle. I know it is replacing DiVincenzo is by committee, but it's pretty clear that Rob is going to be, part of that committee. I asked Finch about it before the game too, and he's like, Minot's going to be in the rotation every night as well. But like he said, it's 28 minutes there, and I don't know what we're giving Minot on average a night, 9 or something. I mean, if he got 2 rotations, so maybe not even 9 on average. There's some space in there for Dillingham to play extended runs, for Minot to play longer than little 2-3 minute shifts. This is what we've been talking about all season, right? With this team's been ridiculously healthy. And while I think there's been justified frustrations about Dillingham not being out there at times, or Minot being in this weird role, or Terrence Shannon Jr. not playing at all the entirety of the season. Ingles doesn't play either. He was supposed to be a rotation kind of piece. There's room, there's minutes now. And it's a rough stretch in the schedule. Tomorrow's a back-to-back in Cleveland, and then they go to Memphis for a day game on Monday. Like, this is this is not only the time where I think they would probably have gotten to the bench a little bit more, just kind of due to the schedule and the midway point of the season. But now they need to go. They need to get to the bench more as well. And I'm was very encouraged by Rob Dillingham's offense in the first half in particular. He hit that three. I don't know, one or two of them. He had his foot on the line, but I'm going to call them all threes. He hit in that 8-minute shift. He hit 3 from the perimeter. He also had a one time, penetrated down the middle and found Rudy for a lob. Like, I think he might be the one of the best
French-speaking players on the team right now because he gets it. And his feet, by the way, like he is so shifty that he does just kind of like he steps on the line a lot. I have those videos still when he was just warming up in Portland a couple months ago, and he would always like do like a shooting drill, but he'd always like have a foot out of bounds. I think that's just rudimentary stuff that you just got to clean up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even being critical of the kid. It's just I think reps will come with that. The thing I like the most about him, and I should say this too, like to kind of as we transition through this episode, you woke up yesterday morning, and I don't know anyone who follows, covers, cheers for this team that doesn't just think like, okay, Dante's probably their second best player right now. So then when you lose Dante, it is kind of a how are they going to replace him? And like, because I was thinking, if someone in the front line, the front court, or whatever is out, that's probably how Josh will get more minutes. Well, Dante's out now. We don't know how long, but Rob, I mean, this is what we've been talking about. This is what you and Britt have been talking about, and Chris and Jace. Like, you don't want an injury to one of the 8 starters, but if you get one, it's really going to give an opportunity. And I thought Rob just came in tonight after having a couple pretty good G League performances, up and down, his shot wasn't falling, but he plays with like the Naz Reid 0.5 mentality. And I don't always mean he's getting off of it, like, but you talked about earlier in segment 1 about how like an offensive play could break down. It's like, well, I hope to God they don't just go into ISO. He just has so much flair and juice that it's like, okay, nope, now we're going to spin it back and throw it back to Naz. We're going to do this. So that's what this offense
keeps
needs.
It popping, yeah.
That's what Dante does. Like, Dante just adds a lot of pop to the offense to get the ball moving more, and I think it's contagious. And you got to be super happy for Rob. I mean, again, I didn't think, by the way, like his offense, what did he finish with? He played 13 minutes, 9 points, 4 of 6 shooting, 3 assists, 2 turnovers. During that same time, though, it was getting kind of neutralized by Cam Payne scoring all those points.
Who he was guarding.
But I want to say this, and we're doing a pod right after the game. But when you go back and rewatch it, I don't know how much that was on him. I'm not defending him, but like it did seem like
I know there was just I think the first one he died on a screen.
Yeah,
and Cam Payne hit it. But you're right. I'm probably being like, well, that means that it was Rob's fault for all of them. I don't know. I wasn't in the moment. He does
play defense like Malik Beasley. Like he just runs around, which is totally kind of fine sometimes, right? But I again, maybe I'm wrong. We'll all rewatch it. But I didn't think the defense was that bad tonight. He's going to get killed on screens because he is small, and he's going to have to find. I mean, another game that was on was Chris Paul, and it's like Chris Paul's small, and he finds ways to navigate those screens. So that's going to have to just be reps for Rob to navigate that the way Nikhil slides through and navigates screens. But to me, it was way more about just the offensive pop. I mean, him and Naz Reid have more pick and roll chemistry than Ant and Carl ever did. And it works really well.
Yeah.
I mean, two of the 6 for 6 threes that Naz hit were just off of really good actions where Rob drew 2, got Naz, and Naz didn't jump, and he hit a 3. So, and then the alley-oop to Rudy, it's like, there's just not guys on this team that can do that. I mean, obviously Mike had one where he kind of got into the paint, kind of snaked his way in, threw a really nice touch pass, but I mean, Rob did it in the G League the other night with Jesse Edwards on the first play of the game. Like, Rob really knows how to get other guys involved, and when we watched him in Summer League, right, like, okay, he can score, but can he do what this team needs right now? Because long-term, he is the point guard of the future. Like, I don't think when this thing is whatever down the road marinating, like, it's going to be Dante. And I just thought it was a really good performance, and they're going to need him to do more of that. Like, they're going to need him to play even better and, attack and maybe get to the rim at all if he can, because without Dante, they still need scoring, and they need that, like you said, they need that pop.
I was thinking during the game, as Rob's out there playing, and I was thinking about Ant's rookie season and how long it took him to become like a fixture of the Wolves. He was a bench player, and it's COVID. It was weird. Like, the draft was a couple weeks before like the season started or something. And so that's part of the reason why Ant came off the bench. But I think, and in particular, I asked Ant about it after the game. I'll play this clip, but I think that Ant had that experience of being frustrated with not being the number 1 overall pick and not being a starter on one of the worst teams in the league. His rookie season what better for a clearly frustrated Rob Dillingham, who's, even more so getting shelved than Ant was, but Rob's on at least a decent team, way better than that team. I thought this answer was interesting from Ant, and kind of lets us in on the fact that Rob has been frustrated by this, but that it is kind of part of the reality, has been part of the reality of the situation, and opportunities will come. And tonight was an opportunity, but I thought this was interesting for me.
First round pick, and Rob's navigating, finding his role. What was that like for you, and how have you helped him kind of figure that out? You know what I mean?
That's a great question, bro. Because I be trying to tell Rob that I was the number 1 draft pick and I came off the bench. Like, I be trying to get him to understand this. And, his answers are the same that mine would be. Like, bro, I don't care, bro. Like, he said something that, like, stuck out to me the other day. He was like, you think I'm going to hurt y'all if I get on the court? Like, you think I'm going to hurt y'all? He was like, no, I'm going to help. And you can't really say nothing back to that, because it's like, bro, the confidence is there, and he done showed it. Like, he showed it in Boston. He showed it tonight. He showed it every time he plays. So, like, it's hard to, like, explain to him, like, bro, it's this many, this is why you're not playing, and X, Y, and Z, but he showed it every time. So I just try to tell him about that situation all the time. Like, bro, I came off the bench. I didn't start until, like, what game? 20-something?
Yeah.
Like, game 20, yeah. And I think it was after the Lakers game, or right before the Lakers game, where I went crazy my rookie year. I didn't start starting until then, so I be trying to get him to understand that. And his confidence is at like a all-time high, so he never can get that. And
Sounds like you.
He sounds just like me, yeah. And I couldn't understand why I wasn't starting, so I can't really give him too many answers.
It's good that he might not have great answers for him. And maybe it has, and it will prove to be a mistake on Finch's part, right? That he didn't play him earlier or something like that.
Right.
But Ant, I think, understands. You could get in his answer. He's like, well, we got these other guys. Like, the same thing we've been talking about the whole time. Like, I think Ant understands why Rob hasn't been playing. There haven't been that minute load available, or you would have to really have been taking it away from Nikhil and Dante and Naz, who even at the beginning of the season was rough. Like, that was the best part, right? Like, so it made sense that Rob was limited. He's also been like, I feel like this was never like properly understood, that like he hurt his ankle in the Stay in Shape League, and then he re-injured it. Like it wasn't like he's just been getting DMPs for the past month. Like, he was hurt, and he had a very small role before that, and I get that. And Finch, and he was catching DMPs sometimes then, but I just, as we're at the halfway point of the season, I hope Rob is better understanding the framing of it. But what that answer tells me is, like, he's pissed about it, not in like a bad way, but he's pissed that he hasn't been playing. Like, you don't think I'm going to help you? Like, and here we go. He can help now, right? There's, like Finch said, 28 minutes a night now available for somebody to take. And Rob is absolutely going to get a shot on it. He's taken Dante's spot in the rotation. There's back Conley starting, but he's coming in the same spot that Dante was when Dante was coming off the bench. Like, he's got a real role here. And I know you said it was only 13 minutes tonight, but there's going to be bigger games than that too. And particularly, again, if Dante's out for like a month, then somebody else might get hurt at that time too. So there's really going to be opportunity for him to go there. So this is what happens. This is what it's been. Ant is able to talk to him about it. Hopefully Finch is too. And you bring him back in now, right? And time to go, right? It's halfway through your rookie season. Sorry you didn't play at the beginning of the season. Maybe you should have. But here's your opportunity. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, when I listen to that, I just think about what we fought after the Portland series of just, if one of my biggest criticism of Chris Finch this year has just been like a lack, or the timing of when we do things, right? Like, we were kind of harping on this starting lineup thing, and then everyone was on board, and then finally the magic bullet was shot, and now it kind of paid off. I think Rob probably should have had a chance earlier. But it wouldn't have been a large role, right? Because at that time they had, quote unquote, 8 starters. So I don't know how you would have forced him in. I also just think when I think of Rob, I think of the Knicks, I think of the Wolves. I think he was another casualty of the Karl-Anthony Towns trade.
Great point.
Because it happened at the 11:30 hour, right before media day, and it's like you drafted this kid
in July,
8th, 9th overall in July, and you use assets to go up and get him, and like, okay, now we have this fun piece to, when we sucked at rebounding against the Grizzlies, we went out and we got this guy to rebound, and then when we couldn't score against Luka and Kyrie, we went out and got a guy who can get his own bucket. And then right before training camp starts, it's like, but there's this kid from Villanova who's probably at this moment just better than you at everything and a little bigger and a little more proven, and DiVincenzo's. So I feel for the kid because, again, the ones who have been the loudest about him, he's got it. Like, I mean, he's going to get killed on screens a lot, and he's going to have some turnovers. But in those games that Dante started, he's having 3 turnovers a game. Like, I am okay, even though this is a team, Craig Kilborn would hate this, but I am okay with him just turning the ball over because I think the other stuff he brings right now in an increased yet limited role, this team just needs. I mean, again, it's really as basic as the pop, as you said earlier. He just has a pop that gets other guys involved. And when you get Rudy a touch, Rudy's going to play tougher defense. Yep. And when you get Naz going, Finch is probably more inclined to let him close over Julius, even though, again, tonight that was probably just, that game was kind of wrapped up, so they didn't have to close with Naz. But I'm just happy for the kid because he's really good at basketball, and I don't, Ant didn't start, like you said, first overall pick on a bad team, but that was 300 and some games ago, and Ant has had a long career, and it's really worked out for him. So for Rob, he didn't start right away. He's going to start at some point. That's the whole point of this, whether you believe it or not, but I was happy for him to do it on a stage like that too, because again, the confidence factor, that was what stood out for me in that quote. It's like, when he came in against the defending champs, he was fearless. And I think to be that short, but to be that shifty, I think you have to have a level of confidence that might bite you in the ass sometimes, but he needs that. He needs to carry that everywhere he goes, and he does that with the best of them.
I have a question for, I meant to, watch one of his G League games, or at least go through the clips, and I didn't. And the numbers in the aggregate of his couple games when he was down with the Iowa Wolves in the G League, shooting numbers are not good. A lot of turnovers. How would you say what it looked like compared to what those numbers that were, floating around on Twitter and stuff that were kind of creating the narrative, because people other than crazy people like you aren't watching the Iowa Wolves games. You know what I'm saying? Like, it becomes then the truth of like what the numbers said, and we could do that a million which ways of like, actually this guy was helpful, but he shot 2 for 9, in this game. Where was it in your eyes when he was in the G?
The G League to me is very beneficial, and it's wonderful now that like a lot of teams have their own G League affiliate. Remember,
like there's a butt coming here.
Yeah, a big one, but it really is just juiced up summer league in like the worst way possible. So even though Terrence Shannon Jr. that one night had like 47 or 42, whatever, it's like, but I watched that whole game, and it's just a lot of drives to the basket, which he is exceptional at. Mm-hmm. But it's just high, like they're not really digging in. There's no moment in any G League game that looks like when the Wolves had that amazing defensive rotation against the Suns. That doesn't exist. So for Rob, the shot just didn't fall. But again, like his first play coming off this banged up ankle was a really nice high screen and roll where he gets to the rim and then throws a perfect pass to Jesse Edwards, who has, questionable hands, and he caught it and he dunked it. So I think
it's a Rudy approximation. I mean,
and then you saw it at Madison Square Garden, a week later. So I don't really care. And the people that follow Rob and Rob Dillingham, Muse, and all those people that know him better than us, they would echo this too. I don't really care when his jumper's just not going in, because he is a bucket getter. Like he is just a natural scorer, and he'll just have off nights. But I just think probably down in Des Moines, again, they said, hey, we want you to work on your facilitating and getting other guys involved, or at least getting into the middle and then kicking it or trying to hit that floater, because that's what you're going to do right now. And what will Rob Dillingham's game look like when he's 23 or 24? I mean, think about what we would have said when Ant was 19 and not starting. It's like, do you think he would be leading the league in made threes? Probably not, because his jumper was kind of broke or whack. I mean, it just wasn't great. So for Rob, it's just what can you do right now to help this team stay afloat and try to battle out of mediocrity? And then as he gets stronger and older and has more off seasons, I really think that'll come around. But yeah, in the G League, man, it was just up and down, getting your shots, not a lot of them going in, finding some guys, hit 2 clutch free throws to win the game. Go Iowa Wolves.
He did have one answer. He was asked about what he's like kind of learned most, you know, in his time, and it's kind of about what you were talking about. It was about Ant as well. Here's Rob.
Shit, I learned from Ant every day. All these dudes, but like Ant mainly because it's like you see it firsthand. Like if he miss, he missed. Like he gonna shoot that shit again. So like it just show you like, bro, no matter what happened to you, you gotta keep going. And that shit might not go the way every time, but you never gonna even be in that position if you don't even put yourself in that position to fuck up. So
Hey, quick.
Yeah.
He is learning from his vet because he said shit and fuck 3 times in 30 seconds. So the first time we've gotten real post-game media from Rob Dillingham, and he just went full Ant. And I love it. And if you're watching on YouTube, the cool moment about that is that you guys must have requested Rob, right, as one of the 3 guys you talked to. And Ant just forced himself in there in a really fun way to kind of stand next to the kid. And that
I have the. This is
when
Ant
somebody
jumping in.
when I'm over and shoot, get right here.
We do my meeting.
Let me get in there with little Rob.
What y'all got?
I saw Rob hit the corner 3 and you kind of got hyped for him.
For sure.
Like, what did it feel like to have the young kid back out there with you?
He fine. I mean, everybody know it. The world know it. You know, it just time. It takes time, you know, and it's going to happen. He's going to start playing more and more and more. He just got back healthy, so we've been missing him the last couple weeks. And he just got back out there and showed why he should be playing. And, you know, we just got to have faith in him.
Rob.
That is how Ant does leadership.
And a couple weeks ago, I said, a couple weeks ago, I said that was the worst quote he's had as a basketball player. And I think, honest to God, that was one of the cooler moments he's had because Rob Dillingham has a big following, as we know. But he's at the Mecca. He's at Madison Square Garden and one of the coolest players in the league, a top 10 players, like just kind of big brother him. And I mean, that right there, that is the backcourt of the future for this franchise. Like, there's really no way for me to think differently. Like, those are the 2 guys that at some point are going to be playing 38 minutes together every single night. So while I didn't love what Ant said earlier in, this month or whatever, that was a really, really cool moment. And it meant a ton to Rob to just have Ant kind of have his back and be like, we missed him. He's fire. Everybody knows he's fire. And also we need him. Like, we're going to need him now over this stretch of games without Dante.
I'll try this out for a segue. If that's the backcourt of the future, maybe, hopefully, or we'll see what happens in free agency. But Naz Reid could be the big, running with those guys for years. We mentioned his game a little bit again, 6 for 6 from deep, also had 8 rebounds tonight. But I want to more talk about like the idea of Naz taking off. And this is not like he hasn't been bad this year. It's not like he hasn't been the guy he was, but not with the same consistency and not with the same sort of upside that we've seen these last 2 games from him, the Golden State game 2 and this one, where Britt and I talked about it on the pod last time, and Britt threw out the, Naz is 80. We were talking about the future and finances and everything. He's like, Naz is 80% of Cat at, a third of the price, whatever. And it hasn't really felt this season like Naz is 80% of Cat. And I think this version of him is what is 80% of Cat, right? Or 80% of when Cat was at the 4, if that makes sense. Obviously, we're seeing Karl at the 5 with the Knicks is something special and dangerous offensively, like we experienced for years too before Rudy. But are you with me in the idea that Naz feels like he's jumping up to another level that he can kind of coast at this season? The reason I asked that is tonight, he's making all those threes. I get it. It was a hot night, but it reminded me of the end of last season once Karl got hurt and they're starting Kyle Anderson in Cat's place. And then Naz just kind of made a leap and he became the guy. And then they moved him into the starting lineup and Naz was at a different level. And if you remember, that's actually what won him Sixth Man of the Year was those last 20 games of the season when he was starting, but it still made it. So whatever, he met the threshold for Sixth Man. I think Naz is getting to another level. And I think what gets Naz to another level is being empowered to have the role, have the opportunity, understanding his surroundings, and be the best version of himself in that. And at least these last 2 games, I'm seeing that, which leads me to be like, if they survive this Dante patch or, they win 65% of their games up until the trade deadline, I can't see that happening unless Naz Reid does this, and is this, again, not 6 for 6 consistently, but this threat, this weapon, this Naz Reid that he is and can be. We haven't seen enough of that this season. And I think there's another gear there for sure. And I think we're starting to see how that gear hums,
Yeah, because if you think Dante right now in the current moment is this, the second best player on the team or the second best offensive player on the team, losing him, I think the drop down, I mean, Julius Randle is still a good offensive player. I think your comments in your last pod about does that offense translate to modern day basketball was really, really smart. But when you take Dante out of the mix, whether he's starting at point guard or one of the 3 hockey subs that come in off the bench of the 8 starters, that's a big loss. And as awesome as Rob is, and as much as he needs to play at least 2 6-minute stints a game now, moving forward, if not more, Rob is going to just have really bad nights. And like Nickeil tonight, I know he hit, as Finch said, clutch shots. He had 6 points. I didn't really think Nickeil had a great game tonight. So you kind of almost need Naz to be Naz and also be DDV a little bit. You know what I mean? And it does feel...
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
It does feel like when...
So Nickeil can be the defender guy and isn't trying to become... Like, Nickeil trying to become Dante DiVincenzo is probably going to, hurt, right? Like, we've kind of seen Nickeil when he's done that. Like, let Nickeil only have 6 points, but... pester Jalen Brunson when he's out there or, be a functional spacer, be somebody who puts pace into it. Like, I think you're right. I think it's a good comp to say Naz actually needs to absorb the offensive force of Dante DiVincenzo because I don't think you're going to get that from Nickeil and Rob, as Finch says, right? You might get it once every 3 games. Like Naz can be 2 out of 3 games, 4 out of 5 games. Like, where he is that force. I feel like we're on the precipice of that, or it's already started, and we're going to look back and be like, oh yeah, remember mid-January? That's when Naz started rolling. Like it feels like we could be there.
And maybe that's how you find out that Naz Reid needs to be the starting power forward of this team moving forward. Like maybe the Dante DiVincenzo thing is the most random, ironic timing of an injury because if this was like corporate organization stuff, like I think I've learned a lot this season about roles. I mean, I've always talked to Jim Pete about this, but like how it's really important for guys to know their roles. And we can scoff at that, but like when they don't know, it really fucks them up. And if I was Finch, I would just simply be like, okay, Dante's out for hypothetically 2 weeks, whatever. It's like everyone do what they do normally at work. Naz, I need you to do 50% of what Dante's tasks were. Yeah. Mike, you do 20%, and Rob, you do 30%, right? Just cut up the pie like that. But Julius, just you do Julius' tasks, and right. Jaden, you stick to your job description. Like, that's how it should be. But that might be, like, the biggest story of the next couple of weeks because, you know, this is fun, right? Like, they beat the Knicks. They played really well. This whole pod looks a lot different if they lose that game. But it's still all about, in my opinion, February 6th. Like, that, to me, is when I watch these games now, I think about it every single time. And when it comes to Naz Reid, it's like, you know, February 8th is Naz Reid bobblehead night. 2 days after the trade deadline. Like, oh, you know, windhorse fingers. But I just think this is Naz's opportunity. Whether, again, he's not, in my opinion, going to start as long as Julius Randle is on the team. That's just because I think that's how it's going to work.
Reading tea leaves, yeah.
Yep. But that doesn't mean that Naz can't have a bigger, you know, pie, usage, whatever. And it started tonight. And again, yeah, going 6 for 6 helped. I think rebounding, he also kind of has to find just, you know, if he does become the power forward of the future and Rudy Gobert maybe has lost a step, like he's going to have to rebound better. But the 80% of
tonight,
Carl's stuff. Yeah, I thought he was good tonight. The 80% of Carl's stuff. I mean, that he gave you that tonight from 3, and more playmaking, more attacking the rim. Just a really cool 36 hours for a guy. Again, I know I'm hammering home this jersey retirement, which, by the way, it's always like when you have a jersey retired, it's like the number and the last name. I thought it was so cool that it also just said Naz Reid. But, that dude was undrafted, man. And I will never stop mentioning that when you talk about him, because you just don't really see stories like that, like undrafted as I think he would say fat center, to now this crazy hybrid 3-4 that will never shoot as well as Conley Towns. But I mean, I think he's shooting 38% this year, but 38% from your power forward on high volume with Ant and with Dante, and some of these other pieces long term, I think it's really exciting. So he had a great game tonight. He had a great week, but they're going to need him to step up, I think, the most. Obviously, Ant is the focal point of all this, but if you said who is going to need to step up the most in DDV's absence, it's got to be Naz Reid.
I think part of why I believe it is because he's 25. And I was thinking today, there's all this media, there's all this New York media, and I mean, you remember this from back, a couple of years ago, like Naz was kind of like a nervous kid, right? Like, and when we would do interviews and that, and he just was, standing up there. I've talked about this before in my experience of, covering these young men, even teenagers, when Naz was a teenager when he came in, Rob is, Ant was, Jaden was, they flipped this adult life switch, as we all do. Right. I think I've said this to you before, like in sometime in our early mid 20s. And when you do that, it comes with a confidence and it comes with a consistency. And I say that about Naz, like I believe he's approaching his prime and all those things, and that's encouraging from a basketball standpoint. But I was thinking about it tonight in that, Ant is a couple years away from being that age, and maybe similarly making that leap in maturity or whatever, to just getting a little bit older and flipping that switch. And that just sometimes literally takes time of getting older. And when it happens, special things, can happen and like exponentially so. That's kind of what happened with Naz last season, right? I think that's where really when he made the change. And now, he's went from being an undrafted 19-year-old that weighed 280 pounds when he entered the league to a 25-year-old who just won Sixth Man of the Year, is about to get paid in a major way this season, has changed his body and weighs 235 pounds. We don't need to do, it's an amazing story for the millionth time. I'm just noting that like we're in a new chapter, I think, of the Naz book, because he is in a new place in his life. And those things are important for me, or have been important for me, to remember and to understand. And when there are the things with Ant where I'm like, oh my gosh, you're still doing this, or you're still not doing that, it doesn't mean that they can't come. It means that they're not here yet. And those things come with added growth and maturity of being a human, just like it did for us when we were around that age in our own lives, in our own capacities, not just me and you, everybody listening to this. I think Ant is there. I think Naz is there. And I think, this other young wave of guys too, like if this team changes in a couple of years and is different, and you go, what do I think about like a Ant, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, and Rob Dillingham group, you go, I don't know, how special is that team, right? It doesn't sound like a contender, right? How it becomes a contender is that those guys mature and do it collectively, and all four of them together. And in a couple of years, I think the sum of Ant plus Jaden plus Naz plus Rob could be substantially more than it is right now. And that's, I think that's just getting older. Sorry.
This is the highest of bars, right? But don't you think some of that, like, well, that doesn't sound that sexy right now, was the same way they talked about like
Okay,
Jalen Williams and Cason Wallace and Lou Dort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they threaded the perfect needle and had the perfect coach and they had the perfect front office and all that stuff to make it work. But I'm with you. And the only, again, if you're a grandparent of a player listening to this, we love you. It would be a damn shame for Naz Reid to not see, because I still think, like you say, 80% of Carl, he's never going to be Karl Anthony Towns. But I also think just in general, like his ceiling right now, like is at 80%, and there's a whole letter grade left for him to like develop into and grow into. And like I think there's a whole other chapter of like how good Naz Reid can be. And it would be a damn shame if that happened anywhere but Minnesota. And I don't think it can happen here as the sixth man of the team. I just don't. You know what I mean? Like you said, it feels like something's bubbling. It's like those first couple bubbles when you're boiling water for mac and cheese. Like I want to see that thing really boil. And I just think for that to boil, I do think at some point it has to be starting at the power forward position, 6'9" out of LSU, Naz Reid. It has to be. That's the final chapter of this. And hopefully it happens here.
Very likely we don't have to do much on this at all. I just do want to note, I thought the defense was special in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
at times.
For sure. Absolutely.
And I was sitting next to Andrew Carlson, who was out here covering this game. We were talking about like what level of Rudy game was this, right? And it was like, at the beginning of the games, Jericho Sims was getting some offensive rebounds on him. He wasn't super involved offensively. But then I was sitting there, I was thinking about it. I'm like, he is part of the, again, collective reason of why they were slowing down Jalen Brunson. And it's what Rudy was doing in this game of just being like a depressant for opponent offensive efficiency is what he did all year last season, right? It wasn't, right? Last season wasn't all about Rudy having a bunch of blocks, right? It was about the never minds. And that, and what really then stood out when you're like, oh, the Wolves defense is awesome, was actually about how the other four guys flew around like orbiting Rudy Gobert and getting deflections, making it, containing the ball with one player. And that's what the best Rudy Gobert defense is. I've been frustrated this season with his rebounding recently. I've been frustrated with his ability to one-on-one guard some other centers, but this is the Rudy gear. Like this is the thing Rudy is best at, is manning the middle while surrounded by defenders who can kind of be the point of the spear, or his point of the spear around him. And particularly that possession was like with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It looked, you referenced that Phoenix play from the first round that sealed that series. That possession looked like that.
Yep.
And this one ended in a Gobert, block of Josh Hart above the break. But again, we were talking about Naz, we're talking about replacing Dante, we're talking about Ant, leveling up Rob, whatever. Another element of, if this is a 10-5 stretch into the break, what fuels that, because of how this roster is constructed, and as frustrated as I know so many people are frustrated with Rudy Gobert, like if I don't see how they get that 10-5 run over the next 5 games without Gobert being what he was defensively a season ago. And tonight I saw that. And I think that is an encouraging element, that you wouldn't look at the box score and be like, oh, Rudy, this, that. But it looked like last season, Rudy, he wasn't guarding Karl Anthony Towns. Probably wouldn't have if he had to be guarding Karl Anthony Towns. But in a drop at the rim, Rudy can still be lethal defensively, or really part of a potent defense.
Yeah, he finishes with 11 points and 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. The rebounding thing, again, just kind of putting thoughts into your head as you continue to consume a ton of basketball. It just seems like sometimes, he is the rim protector of this team, but you watch some of those rebounds, there's so many times down these games, right, where it seems like they have 4 guys really tight to the rim, and like these long rebounds, they just give up. But it seems like Rudy is like under the basket. I don't think he is athletic. During commercial breaks, like the the broadcast I was watching for, Bally's or FanDuel or whatever, it's like showing all these old clips, and they just showed like Rudy Gobert dominating in Utah. Like, and he is more athletic there, like anyone else was at 25 compared to 31, 32. But some of that stuff, I do kind of hold out hope that it's like little tweaks, because it seems like when he gives up a rebound, he's like standing directly underneath the basket, which is literally limiting him from jumping or doing anything. So I don't know how much of that is, he's washed or he's over the hill. But it's just kind of something to keep an eye on. But I'm with you. That block on Josh Hart, the way he rotated, the defense, obviously you're going to look at the 116 points the team scored tonight and the fourth best offensive rating. But as long as I think Finch is probably here, which is weird because we thought he was an offensive genius and it's been more of a defensive thing, this team's identity will always be defense. At least as long as Rudy Gobert is on the team, right? So,
right. That's the kicker there. And I've been hard on Rudy's defense, and I'm kind of, I think, contradicting some of what I said on the last episode when I was talking about Rudy only being able to be effective in a drop and in sort of specific settings and matchups. I do still think that to be true, and I think tonight was one of those. I just think there's going to be enough of those over the next 15 games where he can have that sort of impact that drives a 10-5 stretch over the next 15 games. I still hold out concerns about, Rudy Gobert and the fives he would need to guard in the playoffs and how impactful he could be in a 2-7, 3-6 matchup against Alperen Şengün, something like that, or a play-in game against Domantas Sabonis. But we're not in the playoffs right now. Like, you got to win more games than you lose the rest of the way to get there. And how they win more games than they lose the rest of the way is at least half about the defensive side of the ball. And that half of the defensive side of the ball is at least half about Rudy Gobert. And so within that unfortunate sort of framing, they need that out of him. If that makes sense, to be able to win, to even get to the playoffs, to test and see, like, okay, Rudy, can you be better than you were in the regular season against Şengün? That's a question I think is open, and he has to prove some things there, but there's steps before getting there and getting a collective defensive group that makes plays like they were making in the fourth quarter that empowers Rudy to feel more comfortable and more. And when he's feeling more comfortable, he's feeling more impactful. He's a bizarre cat to watch play, right? Like it's true. And there's the frustrations are deserved, but we need to also find the props along the way. And I think that's something we've tried to do with Gobert all along, and have approached it honestly as to what he is and what he isn't. But I'm talking to myself mostly here. Like, let's not forget what he can be too, because I don't think he's washed. I think what he needs at 32 is to be part of a defense that has a defensive flow. We talk about offensive flow all the time, but there's defensive flow too. It's that split second effectively guessing what your teammate is going to be able to do, knowing their tendencies to be able to take the step over there. Like, those are the Gobert defense. That's what Utah was. That's what the Wolves were last season. They got to get back to that. And I thought tonight, and it was highlighted by them limiting Jalen Brunson. Jaden McDaniels did that. Nikhil did that. Ant guarded him some, all with Rudy behind them. And the having Rudy behind them part is big. I just wanted to note that before we let this game fly away.
Can we close with a mini basketball segment that talks about the defensive identity? And you said last year they were known for their defense, and Rudy Gobert won all, defensive player of the year and stuff. Because I have a message, but I'm the wrong messenger. And I want you to just be brutally honest and be like, no, that's not right. And that's not how I see it. I think Jaden McDaniels is playing really well. Like, really good basketball. In the 9 games in January, again, it's a small sample size. He's 11-6, 52% from the field, 46% from 3, 2.5 blocks and steals. I thought he was primarily on Brunson tonight, just kind of like how he was primarily on Steph Curry the other night. And he treated Steph, albeit he got away from Naz and Ant in that 1-3 to kind of win the game. I thought Jaden treated Steph like Wells treated Ant. And just, there were possessions where Steph was like, I can't get the basketball. And tonight, Brunson obviously has 26 points. That'll stand out, 9 for 23. Basically, 1 point per shot, essentially. and again, I'm the wrong messenger for this, but as we criticize all these players when they're losing, and rightfully so, because a lot of them have regressed this year under the coach or whatever, but I don't know, like, some of the stuff we talk about in the past, and I get it from you because you're really on top of this, but it's like, hey, Jaden can't play the 4. Well, yeah, but that was like years ago.
Yeah. And
now I think Jaden, like, his best position is the 4, right? Or like, oh, Jaden falls out all the time. He's fouled out twice in 41 games. You know what I mean? So, like, again, 9 games in the month of January, but he's shooting better from the corner, or he's shooting better from all spots of 3-pointers than like Nikhil right now. Again, 9 games, but I like him to not be in the corners because, as Jake Painting said, like, missing corner threes just nukes an offense. Like, those are the best shots you're trying to get, and if you just don't have guys trusted in the corner, that sucks. But you know what? Sometimes those guys that are in the corners are also your best defensive players, oftentimes. So I just think that he's part of this resurgence, I think, and he needs to continue to just. He really has a soft mid-range game, and I think just crashing more and getting rebounds. Like, he had one in the Warriors game where he just like, hey, I'm bigger than Steph Curry. Let me get this and dunk it right back. Yep. He had one tonight where it's like Brunson's in front. It's like, I'm just going to get the ball over you and put it back in. So, again, I know I'm a big fan of his, or I think he is a really valuable player, and he's making more money now, so he should be bringing more value to the team. But just kind of a subtle, really good start to 2025 for him, especially. I mean, did you think he was shooting 45% from 3?
He's definitely made more threes. This is kind of random, but I've been meaning to want to talk about this because he's so often like ignored in the corner, right? And that will just lead to wide open corner threes sometimes. But what I've noticed him doing more often is like when he's like really left open there, and maybe Rudy has it in the middle, and he kicks it to Jaden there. Jaden is like they're passing it to the corner, but Jaden starts like diving to the basket at like almost as the pass is coming. So he's grabbing it and going into dunking it. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of players, that's a questionable decision there, right? To be like, wait, you're going to pass up the open corner 3 that, most people make open corner 3s at a 40% clip. So to justify passing up on that 3, you need to be able to go make that 2 at a 60% clip. And sometimes that's going to look really bad when Kyle Anderson did that all the time last year. Right. Right. But you know what I'm talking about? I'm literally talking about the same thing, but Jaden is quick and long and can get up there and finish. And I've really just people listening at home, like, I bet you it'll happen tomorrow night. He'll be open there, and there will be a quick opportunity, because the biggest part is quick. Not being like, wait, am I going to shoot this or am I going to drive? Like, noticing immediately on the catch, I'm going in, and he's had some dunks there. And he's had a couple times where he hasn't scored on it. And you've been like, maybe you should have taken that corner 3. But again, this is about the aggregate, right? And I think the reality of the situation is Jaden's probably not going to be a 40% 3-point shooter from the corners. That's just, that seems like the safe bet, right? So doing something, this is the stuff I've talked about with Jaden all the time. I'm like, use him in different ways. Don't just have him be the guy. You're like, you're our catch and shoot 3 and D. That's it. Like, he has things in his game that are better than those 3 and D guys who can't really do anything on offense. So all they do is shoot, catch and shoot corner 3s. Mm-hmm. He's got more to his game. And I like how they're tapping into that. I want to see them use him as a screener more often. I want to see more designed curl cutting actions for him. And I think we're seeing some things of that. And just like the freedom he's clearly been given, like it looks to me like it's directive. I haven't asked Finch or anybody in the coaching staff about it, but like it seems like he has the green light to pass on the 3 and choose to go to the basket. And I think the math checks out on that and has thus far checked out on it, because when he starts missing them, man, it's that energy vampire.
100%. No one fears more incoming text messages than me when Jaden McDaniels misses a corner 3. There was that cool moment, though. Do you remember the play where Ant caught it? Not necessarily in the slot. It was really bad spacing. He was like 3 feet from Jaden, but he caught a wide open 3. And he still kicked it to Jaden in the corner, and then Jaden did hit that 3. So that was kind of like, I mean, Jaden McDaniels shoots 90% when Ant passes him the ball and 10% when anyone else passes him the ball. But just on the Naz thing, or what this could look like down the road, and you did a lot of whether it be purposeful or not purposeful trade deadline chatter this week. If Julius Randle's out and you don't have Karl-Anthony Towns anymore and Naz Reid is a power forward of the future, my biggest concern with that team would just be rebounding. And 6 of Jaden's 12 best rebounding performances in his career have happened in the last month and a half.
Well,
again, I understand it, you guys. 72nd highest paid player in the league. You should be giving him more than 10 and 6, 11 and 6, but it's just something to watch. He shot 18% from 3 in October, 30% in November, 33% in December, now 45% in January. He's probably way closer to that 35% range or whatever, but I think the rebounding is something that is eye testable. Like, you just watch him go get more rebounds, and I think that's kind of been, and maybe it's because he's playing a little more off ball and he gets to roam a little bit, but I'm a big fan of his still, and I still think if you're selling this stock, I'd buy it because I think he's a core part of what this team does. And
I'm glad you brought that up.
That core, group that they're trying to build around. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a fun basketball game for a team that probably needed it after, the Warriors loss was really dumb. The Grizzlies loss was borderline embarrassing. But if those 3 or 4 possessions in those games were a little cleaned up, like this is like a 7-game winning streak. It's not, but I think the fans needed that. I think the team needed that. And again, don't worry about tomorrow night because it's 1 a.m. out in New York and Dane's got to get back to Cleveland. But that Cleveland team's going to come in and do some damage. So I'm glad they got to get one of these this weekend because that's a tough one tomorrow. But you played really good basketball against a team despite not having Karl-Anthony Towns that is a good basketball team. So,
and let's see what they can do against Cleveland too.
That's an interesting matchup.
It is. And I really respect the way that they play offense. And at times I've compared it to Oklahoma City and Boston, but there is a difference with them and Allen and Mobley. I don't have a lot of confidence in this Wolves team going up against the Bostons and Oklahoma Cities right now. Even just kind of stylistically, I think it's hard for the Wolves to keep up with. I'm curious to see the test against Cleveland, and I'm not super willing to just for sure chalk it up as a loss as much as I would if it was Oklahoma City tomorrow night. Now it's still going to be hard. They're flying back literally in the air right now, flying back to Minnesota to play that game tomorrow. It's a tough back-to-back, but let's see, sometimes this team is weird like that, right? Where they play better on about, you know what I'm saying? It's
two easy wins in Portland. This will be fun. And then fucking fighting in my office. Also, too, just something to keep. I mean, there's a lot of different roster building components of this, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are really good, and they have such an awesome team. And them in Boston and OKC. But I mean, maybe I'm just an idiot, but that backcourt reminds me of shades of what this thing could look like, right? I mean, Darius Garland's 6'1", and he's one of the best point guards in the league right now. So Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Rob Dillingham, Anthony Edwards. It'll be a fun night, and then like I said, I expect the bare minimum from them because they have every excuse in the book to have low energy and get blown out, and those are some of the times that they actually surprise you. So good week of pods, good week of up and down Timberwolves basketball. Yeah. 2 big dates on the calendar for me, February 6th and February
8th. Let's wrap this thing up with some prize picks for the NFL weekend ahead. I can't put it up on the screen in New York. I guess that doesn't. Prize picks doesn't. I'm not sure if that. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I think you grabbed a couple that you like for maybe this slate of playoff games, NFL playoff games this weekend. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm cooking right now because it's the playoffs and I turn up. Jaden Daniels, not Jaden McDaniels, Jaden Daniels, over 21.5 pass completions, more than. I just think that they're going to have to throw a lot. Commanders, Lions, the Lions are going to score a lot of points at home. So I think Jaden Daniels is throwing that thing all around. And then I think David Montgomery in that game as well, more than 45.5 rushing yards. I don't know if his legs are healthy or working, but if he's on the field, they're going to give him touches, especially around the goal line. So I like David Montgomery and Jaden Daniels. But yeah, get back to Minnesota and play prize picks. I think they made it illegal in New York. So yeah,
that's okay. It could be. So for our New York listeners, I'm sorry. I also I was looking at it before, and there's a high number on Derrick Henry rushing yards, but I was like Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews, having an impactful game and just them being playing big and physical and heavy in that game makes a lot of sense to me from a Baltimore standpoint. If I had to choose, is Derrick Henry gonna have 100 yards rushing or not? Like, I think I gotta say yes. I know that's a really high number. And then the Andrews receptions, I think, was at 4.5, and I liked more than 4.5 on that as well. So that's 4 prize picks from Kyle and I, but put together a daily fantasy lineup at Prize Picks for the NFL games this weekend. It's fun. I mean, Kyle and I and my other friends too, sending each other screenshots of what do you got, or you want to get it on this one, or I like this. It's play for $5, whatever. It puts something else on it, which I've said this a million different times, but we love Prize Picks as a sponsor, but I genuinely think it makes watching football in particular, for me as a much more casual football fan, it gives you something else to kind of go for there. So prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app. If you use the promo code Dane, they will give you $50 in your account. You got it there. Okay, perfect. There you go.
The best part about Derrick Henry is too, no one's listening to this anymore, so we can do like 10 seconds on football. Derrick Henry would never slide down if he had broke one, like Saquon did. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. Like, Derrick Henry would have just taken that thing to the house. So if it is close and he's got 89 yards and they're trying to run out the clock, that guy might just bust one, because he is. Derrick Henry and Rudy Gobert might be the same age, and just one might be a little more flexible than the other. But
yeah, that's I'm looking forward to the NFL weekend ahead and another Wolves game as well. I appreciate you staying up late with me, and for listeners, for you hopefully getting to this before the game on Saturday, or it will also be it's kind of a weird schedule here. They got a game on Saturday night. Next game is Monday, but it's like a 1 p.m. tip. So Jason and I are not going to record on Monday. The next episode after this one won't be until Tuesday morning. Chris Hine is going to be on the scene in Memphis on Monday afternoon for that game, and we'll talk to him about that game, maybe some Cleveland as well, and he'll have locker room reactions and all those sort of things, and we'll keep rolling with this season and see if the Wolves can kind of build on this. Maybe we'll get some more DiVincenzo information as well. But plenty to cover. Kyle, I appreciate you, and we'll have Chris on Tuesday. Until then, he's Kyle Theige. Follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. I'm Dane at DaneMooreNBA. Till Tuesday, peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.